Welcome back, everybody. I have an exciting guest with you today. This is Jason Stonehouse. Now, let me tell you a little bit about Jason before I get a question for him. He's going to tell you a little bit about himself as well, fill in the gaps. We have just become good friends. Of course, we met on the internet and we've met each other in social communities where we got a chance to learn a little bit more about each other's businesses, how we could help each other. And we thought, well, let's have a conversation and why don't we share that? But more importantly, let you know about something exciting that Jason's just worked on. Now, look, he's an executive coach. He works with entrepreneurs as well. I'm going to let him get into the details there. But the first thing I want to share with you guys is he's got a book. And yeah, shamelessly, we're going to tell you about his book today. Jason, do you have a book there?
Yeah.
Hold it up. So
Confident leader. Yeah.
There you go. It's called The Calm and Confident Leader. Okay, so we're going to get to the book. Stick around if you want to know more about that. And if you want to be calm and confident and you're a leader, this is for you. So before we start, let me go and introduce Jason. Jason, hey, how are you? Good to see you today.
Hey, thanks so much for having me here. Yeah, I really love the opportunity to be able to talk about what has really transformed my own life and so many of the lives of clients that I work with.
Great. It'll be a blessing. So thank you for sharing it. Thank you for doing what you've done. Thank you for putting it into a book. A lot of people say, I want to write a book and then don't do it. But you've done it. Now we have it. It's a legacy. It will be there forever and people will be able to grab it. So why don't we start here? I did a really botched job maybe of introducing you. Tell people who you are. Tell us who's Jason. Let's hear that.
Yeah, I'm my name is Jason Stonehouse, and I have been in leadership roles probably since I was in middle school, and really spent my whole life leading other people and learning lots of mistakes, making lots of mistakes along the way, and really struggling with, back in those days, I would say stress. But I've come now to realize that I've dealt with anxiety as a leader for a lot of my life. And so just my whole desire to really come alongside of others, help other people. I work as an executive coach, as you mentioned, with CEOs and entrepreneurs and real estate investors and all kinds of folks, stay-at-home moms. But I also work as a pastor. So I have an opportunity to connect with people and really bring that kind of similar to like a John Maxwell, be able to be in that marketplace sector, but also in the ministry opportunities and really bring some of the things that I've learned. Because what's really interesting about working in a church is you're dealing with not people that you pay, but you're dealing with volunteers. And so to be able to really bring that heart and that compassion and that motivation and that confidence so that a volunteer, an individual say, yeah, I'll sign up for that and I'll do it for free, is a really, really challenging leadership enterprise. And so it's been fun to be able to bring these two worlds together. I'm not somebody who is looking to proselytize and, all of that, but really just this idea of just saying, what does a good leader look like? And how do we become those kinds of leaders from the inside out?
Love that. You said so much, so I'm going to try and pick up on a few things you said.
Yeah, absolutely.
But if anyone's concerned about this, I mean, I think it's powerful. There's a number of people who maybe didn't know about public speaking or leading communities or stepping into leadership roles who actually learned that within that church environment. You mentioned John Maxwell. I think who's better for us to admire as somebody who's become one of the most successful personal development, professional development, business coaches in the world. So not that Jason or I get anything for promoting John. He's just somebody that we both admire. So we had a quick chat about him before. I want to ask you why you do these things. And you touched on it in that conversation.
Yeah. So
where did this come from? Why do you do what you do? Tell us that.
Yeah. So when like I said, I was dealing with something and I just thought it was stress I remember even in my early 20s, just dealing with stress. And I thought it was stress. Then about 10 years ago, I started experiencing what now I would tell you is panic attacks. I was up in front of 1,000 people more speaking, and I was feeling a panic attack. I was feeling faint, feeling like I was going to vomit. It was just not a good day. And it started happening almost regularly. And I remember I turned to my wife one afternoon and I said, if this is going to be the rest of my life, I don't think I want to do this anymore. Like, I was ready to, check out of leadership and say, you know what, I'm just going to, go down and work at McDonald's or someplace where I don't have the kind of stress and pressures. And I honestly, James, to be honest with you, I felt like I must be the only leader who's dealing with this kind of stuff. But as I began talking with people, I just discovered that this is rampant, that we as leaders get promoted and all of that from the external stuff that we do as leaders, the ROIs and all of the things that we do on a performance level, but nobody really talks about what's going on inside of us. And the anxiety, the stress, the fear of rejection, the worry, the overwhelm, all of those things. And so I began a quest to really understand, why is this happening? And number two, how do we begin to make change? How do I begin to move in a different direction? So I did tons of research. My master's degree is in counseling, so I was able to tap into some of that background. I went to therapy myself for 8 years, really trying to get to the bottom of this. Then I started developing some concepts, and I began testing them with real life leaders, people all over the country, California, commercial finance people and executives, entrepreneurs, all these kind of folks, and really fine tune this process to really be able to be helpful for people. Well, at the end of the day, I just kind of said, if I ever get through this anxiety, I'm going to go back and help other people who have it. And that's really the why behind what I do, is I want to help people because anxiety is crippling us. And since the pandemic, it has skyrocketed. And I don't know that it's really skyrocketed as much as it became okay to talk about it. What the pandemic did was, I think, revealed what was always under the surface, which was this anxiety, stress, overwhelm. And so really what I do in the book and what I do with my clients is really help them get free from that anxiety and stress, so that they're actually able to be emotionally healthy leaders as they engage with people in the real world.
Right. Whoa. Okay. So for the people who work in McDonald's, we know it's stressful. We know you're busy. I've driven past that place, and that drive-through line is never empty.
Amen.
So I know you're going to go to McDonald's and think we're having a quiet life, but you don't get a quiet life if you work in McDonald's. Not to mention there are other fast food chains as well. Yeah. And again, we're not getting any Big Macs for this. We're just having a conversation. Yeah, I love that. So I was having a conversation with my friend Charmaine this week. We've just met, same kind of thing, having a conversation about her experience. And she's a Brit expat into the US, living in the US, and then went into Europe and studied that anxiety is just universal. It doesn't matter that you've had a 20, 30-year career like we've had, or whether you're just starting out, that universal doubt exists in all of us. Whether we do work in McDonald's, whether we're working in a blue chip or large, software business, whatever it is what we're doing, we all have that doubt, and we have that doubt every single day. But what I want to ask you now is so what are some of the tools? What is it that you do? And tell people maybe a little bit about the recipe. So that's teach them, what can they be thinking about just today? Maybe give them 2 or 3 tips about things that they could be doing today. So people get a feel for how you work with people, and then maybe some of the things that are inside that book. Sure. I'd love to hear. Yeah. Sure.
So I really use a 3-stage process. I start with, when I work with my clients, I start with the first stage is envision, and I try to get clarity on who they want to be. I talk about version 2.0 of you, but then I also try to get clarity on what is going on, what's driving your behavior, because there's a root cause underneath. And so what I've seen so many coaches do is they work on the performance side of things, but they don't really get to what's driving that, what's underneath that. So we start with really envisioning who you want to be, but also what's the real issue that's going on here. And then our second stage is really about ownership. And it's really about helping people own their own thoughts, their own feelings, their own actions, so that they can start to bring change. I'm going to say a word about that in a minute, but and then the third stage is to implement. So once we understand what's really going on, where you want to be, where you're not, where you currently are, where you want to be, then we own so that we can start to bring change, and then we implement so that it becomes a part of our everyday life. And that's really the 3-stage process. But I would say one of the biggest.
So recap those. And step 1 is envisioning, which is about clarity.
Yep. And then
2,
ownership, taking responsibility.
Taking ownership.
Yep. And then implement, which is how does this actually play out in my everyday life?
Perfect.
Now, I want to talk specifically, because I think one of the geniuses of the book is really, and it's not mine, I've done it through research, but is this ownership piece, that we have to take responsibility, that we are 100% responsible, is what I say in the book, for everything you think, everything you feel, and everything you do. And if you don't own all 3 of those things, then you really can't bring change in your life. So for example, if I were to come over to your house, James, and I started redecorating and moving things around, you would be like, you call the police or you not put me out of your house. And the main reason I can't do that is because I don't own your house. That's your house. And so what happens a lot of times is we say things like, you make me angry. Nobody makes you angry. As soon as you give them responsibility for your emotion, now you can't change it, because now you have to change them because they're the reason you're getting angry. However, if you can say, I'm 100% responsible for my anger, now I can actually begin to bring change. So the secret is really understanding that you have ownership. And once you have ownership, then you can make changes. Just like I said, if I don't own your house, I can't go in and make changes. And
This
too
is
many of
interesting.
us, go
Yeah,
ahead.
I get the analogy. I love it. I think there is a fine line between therapy and coaching. And you talked about coaching as performance, but I do think coaching has a therapeutic element, especially because we
Yes.
do have to understand what we're thinking, create some of the strategies that we'll do, what we're feeling, that emotional regulation. We're up and
Yep.
down. Things are triggering us all around us, but rather than look externally, to start to look internally and figure out what might be the reason that I feel that right
Right.
now. And then you talked about behaviors.
Right.
Yeah, and I go and work with clients, and I think you do this too, is our behaviors are reinforcing those emotions and reinforcing those thoughts, leaving us stuck in the loop. Is that about right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's
So
very.
let me ask you this. Does the book mention courage at all and the role courage plays in your process?
Yeah, I think when we talk about the confidence piece, we really look at so much of our culture is built on fake it till you make it. And I'm really not a proponent of that, because I do think that most wise people can see underneath a fake confidence, like because you're trying to exude something that's not there. So I think that courage piece is really underneath that confidence, is to say, I don't know what this looks like, but I have the courage to be curious. I had the courage to say, I wonder why I'm acting this way. I wonder what's driving that behavior. I wonder why they are acting this way. When you think about your role as a leader, you begin to get curious. And I think that even asking that question requires a humongous amount of courage, just to be willing to look at it. Because so many of us are just go, 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 go. We don't stop and have the courage to really enter into some of these questions.
Yeah, wonderful. Good.
Yeah.
I see courage as the pivotal point in which you move away from negative emotional
Mhm.
vibration and into the point of positive vibration and being much more aware and awake to what's going on inside of you, so that you can stimulate that change on the outside. Yeah,
It was
excellent.
funny,
Okay.
as a young leader, I was so surprised at how many of my peers were not asking for help. You know, they weren't going to some of these seasoned leaders and saying, "Hey, could you help me out? Could I sit down and have coffee with you?" And I think it's because we want to prove ourselves. We want to say, "Hey, I got it." But I think the more courageous leader is the one who's willing to push through that and say, "Hey, I want to be teachable. I want to learn how to do this." And I think that's really the whole book is really built on this premise of, if you're not willing to be teachable, if you're not willing to look at what you really need to look at, then you're never going to really develop the substance that you
Yeah.
need as a
You,
leader from the inside.
you, you touch on something which I work with is fear of taking responsibility.
Hmm.
So yeah, let me show you is that's the force it through willpower approach to life, fake it till you make it. Yeah. But if you don't have that fear of taking responsibility and you take it head on and you're okay with the fear of rejection, because by the way, you can ask lots of senior executives or senior VIPs for help. Not every one of them is going to say yes in the moment.
Right,
That might be because of where they're at right there. But the truth is you're going to find some aces. You know, in
right.
my career, I've been very lucky to find some aces, senior executives who were willing to sit down with me for hours, even though I'd asked for 15 minutes,
Mhm.
and walk me through their process of how they walk through the ranks. And I think that's a really powerful statement you're making about, yeah, I think people do have a fear of personal responsibility
Mhm.
and a fear of, if I take personal responsibility, that means someone can hold me accountable. And that means I might not look good.
Right.
Or, you know, that I will be rejected. And if I'm rejected, then I won't feel good enough. And if I don't feel good enough, then why am I doing all this? Yeah, I think that's
Yeah,
what
yeah.
we go through.
And
Yeah.
I think another fear that comes up with a lot of the executives I work with is they can't envision a different way of doing things. they can't envision a different approach to this. And so part of that fear is, well, if I let go of this false self, if I let go of this character that I've created that everybody else seems to like, well, then what will I have? And they have to, it's almost like a trapeze artist. You got to grab onto that next thing before you have to let go of the one, sorry, before you can jump on to that next one. You have to let go, and you have to be willing to say, I don't know what it looks like yet, but I believe it's a healthier, better version of me. And so I'm willing to take the courageous step and jump.
That's wonderful.
And see what's going to happen. So
that reminds me of a little exercise I do where we talk about, what do you think your core values are? And people share their core values. Then I walk them through an exercise, just half a dozen questions, and we identify they're living what they think are their core values, but their core value is something completely different. And it works 100% of the time. The core values they say are not who they are.
Yes.
So they've created this egoic, prideful, shame-driven character that's actually forming in a completely different place that would love to shake things up, but there's a fear.
Wow.
To do that, what do I lose?
Yeah.
The loss. There's also that fear of the journey. What journey have I got to go on for me to come out the other side? Yes. And I was watching Sarah Blakely yesterday do a video about the amount of time she was down. That's the time to be courageous.
Yes.
And push forward. These are the lesson learning moments. Yeah. So good. So I want to ask you about your coaching experience. So if somebody was to work with you, what does that look like? Is that kind of 12 weeks with Jason? Is that a year-long program? Tell us about the program.
Yeah. So what I do as far as coaching people is I usually start with about a 20 to 30 minute assessment call. And really, it's just trying to understand, how are these things that we're talking about, how are they exhibiting themselves for this person? A lot of folks are not even really dealing with anxiety, but they are dealing with stress, or they are dealing with managing their image, or they're in a career transition or whatever. And so I usually start with an assessment to understand. And then what I do is I develop a custom proposal for them to say, hey, here's the things we're going to teach. Here's the way we're going to do it. Here's the deliverables that you can expect at the end of our time. And I would say, to be honest with you, James, the average person, it's usually about a 4-month interaction with them. So usually weekly Zoom calls, and giving them homework. And the genius is really in the homework. Like you're talking about, you have these different tools, and I have a whole set of tools that I allow my clients to use. And my whole job with my coaching program is to work myself out of a job. I have no desire to continue coaching folks for years and years and years. I want to give them all the tools so that they can do it themselves. And so it's that self-regulation, it's the self-care, it's the discovery, all of that, but then help them integrate it into their everyday lives and move forward.
Wow. That's like a jump to independence, jump into autonomy,
Yes.
Jump into yourself. You don't need me. Yeah, I tell people you don't need another coach, but I am somebody who believes everybody needs a coach.
Yes.
Actually,
oh yeah.
Need three coaches. I think we need a financial career, a financial health coach. I think we need a wellness health coach, and I think we need a mental health coach too. Somebody who's taking care of us from the way we think. And having those people in your corner is just so powerful. Olympians don't get to the Olympics without all of those coaches.
Right.
So if you want to be an Olympian in your life, it makes sense maybe to have somebody to help you get there. Yeah. So 4 months, great. So I'm making an assumption that that's not free, but you talked about that 20-minute, 30-minute assessment. Is that a free resource that anybody can take?
Yes.
That's a great. So where would they go to do that? If I wanted to do a 20 to 30-minute assessment with you, where do I go?
Yeah, I would say confidentleader.com is my website, confidentleader.com. And you can have a link there to my email address and those kinds of things. But yeah, I do it one-on-one. So you'll actually talk with me for 20, 30 minutes, and we'll do that assessment together. And then we'll figure out, and then, like you said, as far as costs and all of that, we figure that out based on where you're at, based on what you can afford, and where we go.
I want people to get to know you. So what's the free resource? Well, one, they can sit down with you and have a conversation and get going.
Yeah.
Are there any other free resources on the website that they get access to?
Yeah, there is. There's an ebook on there on how to avoid burnout and recover from burnout. So that's a free resource ebook that's available for people on the website as well.
Wonderful. Well, this has been great, and I want to keep it real tight so if people watch this on 2x, you see, they can get it done in 10 minutes. Someone's just sat there going, I didn't realize I could play this faster. Yeah, you can play this faster. So let's talk about the book. So hold that book up again. I want people to see this. So you can see, so you heard the website, calmconfidentleader.com is where you would go. And Jason, tell us about the book, the inspiration behind that, and then also where they're going to go now to pick that up.
Well, the reality is, as I started coaching with people, I do most of my coaching now one-on-one. And so I realized that the amount of people I'm going to be able to get, the content from this book into their lives is really limited doing this one-on-one. And so that's one of the big reasons I wrote the book, was to really expose, get this content out to as many leaders as possible, as many individuals as possible. I think it really just helps you be a better person overall. So where you can get the book is calmconfidentleader.com /book. And if you, that's the way you can order it from me directly. And if you order it from me directly, I will sign every copy and I'll write you a little personal note in your book. So if you want to do it that way, you can find it that way. Otherwise, you can go to Amazon, and on Amazon, just search Calm Confident Leader, and you'll be able to pick out the book that way.
Awesome. Well, what we'll do is, wherever this video is posted, underneath that, we'll put the website so that people can get access to that. I think funnel people talk. Yeah, it's kind of one piece of advice I'd say. Keep getting people go back to the website. And then if you can get them on your mailing list, that's obviously going to help you for future endeavors. More free resources that you can get them to just help you serve the masses while you help a few people one-on-one with some intentional sessions as well. Well, look, this has been hugely valuable for me to get to know more about what you do and how you do it, and share that with the world. Now everybody knows who you are, Jason, and they can come and check you out and look at your website. Take a look at the book, people. We did this so that you could support Jason. And when you do that, you'll be supporting yourself, but also your loved ones, because everything inside that book is probably worth 10x, 100x what you'd get with Jason if you spent time with him over 4 months. So it's buying the book and then digesting that and reading it over and over and over, but then also spreading the word. And when you share the wisdom, you become wiser too. So thank you very much, Jason. I've really enjoyed meeting with you, and we'll stick around for a minute. We're going to say bye-bye to everybody else, but we'll stick around.
Thank you so much for your time. Look forward to it.
Thank you, Jason. I really enjoyed the conversation. See you. Bye, everyone.